But right now, joining us on the line from MLSsoccer.com, Charles Boehm. Charles, welcome.
Hello, good to be here.
Charles, literally minutes ago, as we just said, Sepp Blatter once again re-elected as FIFA president. A lot would say they're not surprised, but a lot thought it would be a lot tighter than it was. Your thoughts?
Prince Ali always had an uphill battle to unseat Blatter. Sepp Blatter, beyond the sort of, I guess, benefits he offers the entrenched membership of FIFA, he also has all the benefits of the institution on his side. And effectively, we've seen over the last few months, we've seen FIFA events become campaign events for him, and that's something that the incumbent often benefits from, and he has certainly used that to the maximum. Prince Ali had previously expressed his frustration at seeing these opportunities for Blatter to campaign and to speak to Confederation gatherings, and him and his fellow challengers who since dropped out, haven't gotten that same opportunity. So there's many reasons that Sepp Blatter is still in charge, but I think Ali actually deserves a bit of credit for making it as close as it was. But the mathematics are such that he was going to have to really do something extraordinary to gain a majority of votes here, and it hasn't come to pass. So I think we'll see most of the drama involving FIFA's leadership is going to happen in courtrooms and in deposition rooms over the next few months and years, rather than at the ballot box.
I'm expecting much more drama later on today, if not today, tomorrow, in the next few days, and I'm going to tell you that I expect Europe, South America, CONCACAF, and some other smaller regions to step up to the plate and say, we are not going to take part in the 2018 or 22 World Cups in Russia and in Qatar. And Michel Platini has his full support of the backing of all his members. I would not be surprised if this goes down. If this does go down, where do we go from there?
Well, that's a huge can of worms to open up. I think it will take a great deal of bravery on the behalf of those, by those groups that you mentioned. And it's also going to take, the concerted efforts of the general public, the media, to keep this in the limelight. We've seen the raids that the Swiss and the U.S. Department of Justice cooperated on this week in Zurich really turn the world's attention to this, at a time when FIFA was gathered. Now, can everyone stay focused and stay interested, and can the pressure remain on those groups? If that does happen, I honestly don't see the odds being high there, but if that scenario you lay out takes place, that would be possibly even revolutionary. I mean, if there's a large enough block that challenges the way things are done, we might see some more maneuverings, but I think it's going to take a levels of bravery that some of these FIFA executives have not shown to date.
Let me ask you this. I want to get your opinion. You're right there in the U.S. of A. You're born a U.S. citizen. A lot of people worldwide are blaming the U.S. for doing what they did in breaking this story wide open and putting their nose in other people's business, as they like to say. I got to tell you, a lot of people should be upset at Chuck Blazer. That's where it all started. Chuck Blazer's the guy that got the ball rolling in many ways. Do you feel that Sunil Gulati really also helped behind the scenes? Because, I gotta admit, I'm a huge fan of Sunil Gulati and what he's done for the game. And for him to be behind us, I would thank him, because it's about time that these things came out to the open. Your thoughts?
Well, this game is so widely loved by so many people, and so valued, that it's hard for people to approach FIFA matters and international football matters with a really without an agenda, right? Even everyone comes to this with their own motivations and their own hopes. I've seen some Canadian observers have sought to sort of analyze how this could benefit Canada, in terms of the future World Cup hosting aspirations and those sorts of things, and that's understandable. But it makes it very difficult to do the right thing, so to speak. And I actually don't think that Sunil Gulati and U.S. Soccer are really the power players here. It's assumed in the international politics realm, as we've seen with Vladimir Putin and others speaking out, that the U.S. government and the Department of Justice and the Federation, the Soccer Federation, are acting in concert here, and I actually don't think that's the case. U.S. Soccer is a fast-growing entity, and Sunil Gulati has cultivated, very cleverly cultivated, a place of influence in the world soccer scene. but it's not the same here at home in terms of the politics and the domestic justice system. So I think in many ways he's been sort of sitting back and watching, but and maybe involved, but not a driver in this process. We have some very assertive justice folks here who have made it a point to go after FIFA. And I don't think there's anything that the U.S. Soccer Federation could do to stop them, even if they wanted to.
You know, Charles, what's really sad to me is you and I have been hearing about the number of lives that have been lost in building stadiums in Qatar, all over. And to me, it's sad to hear this, that lives are being lost to build these stadiums that we know are going to be, for the most part, empty after the World Cup departs. As we saw in South Africa, a lot of these stadiums are now really empty. And the other part that's really disgusting about all this that's come out is the money and how it's been abused and the way side deals have been dealt with. Chuck Blazer, if I'm not mistaken, how disgusting and upsetting this is, had an apartment specifically for his cats that he was renting at $6,000 a month. I mean, that is unbelievable when people are starving all over the world, when kids could use soccer shoes and balls and jerseys. This buffoon goes to rent an apartment for his cats.
Yes, Chuck Blazer's one of the more charismatic and eccentric figures in this whole thing, and it seems pretty clear that he's been turned to a cooperating witness for the DOJ investigation, and his antics and sort of his outsized personality add a sort of strange and amusing element to all this. But it's just par for the course, I think, around the country. He's around the world in terms of FIFA has, and the world game has so much money sloshing around. It's so widely and universally loved, and it defies reason in so many ways. When we approach this game and we approach the global competitions with our hearts rather than our heads in many cases. I think that makes it harder for people to do the right thing. It makes it easier for money to disappear and get rerouted. So certainly there's a lot of injustice, but there's also a lot of very intelligent campaigning that Sepp Blatter has done over the decades. He has sort of reached out to the developing world that many of those countries have a vote in FIFA and are able to flex their muscles in the FIFA political system in a way that they could never on the world political stage. And he's spread money around there. He's brought developmental grants. I used to live in the Caribbean, and you saw the money was being spread out and new stadiums being built and programs being run. He's cultivated a very committed voting base in the developing world, particularly Africa, Asia, and parts of the Caribbean. That even the powerful countries in the West, they still have the same number of votes in the FIFA Congress, and it's going to take a lot. It's going to take something special to shake the loyalty that these nations have to Sepp Blatter.
I got to tell you what, I think there's a lot more to come. I would not be one bit surprised, Charles, that either Warner or Webb start to sing, almost like on Armstrong, when he went to sit on the couch with Oprah and he opened up his mouth and the fountain was flowing and everyone all of a sudden started to say, well, that's okay, let's move on, we forgive you. You watch, Warner and Webb are going to give some bombs out there. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think Jack Warner is the linchpin right now. He was at the heart of CONCACAF's operations. He ran CONCACAF. He was on the FIFA executive committee. He knows where the bodies are buried, so to speak. He's not going to go down quietly. He's got a lot to lose. He's also got a lot that he can do to say and reveal that can damage many men who are still in power, including Blatter. So I think Jack Warner, he's holed up in Trinidad right now, and I'm sure is going to do everything in his power to avoid getting apprehended by U.S. authorities. But if he is in fact brought in and gets to be turned, he's the one who can really break this wide open, and it will happen in a flood. We saw the whole picture change in just a few hours early Wednesday morning this week. That could happen again. I think it's going to be, if any progress is made here and more powerful people in FIFA are brought down, it's going to be because someone like Jack Warner turns and starts talking and singing to the feds.
Just before we let you go, Charles, let's turn it back here to North America, specifically here in the game we love so much in regards to the NASL. And we heard and we read all sorts of things going down with that. How do you think this is going to affect now the NASL? For most, the second tier underneath MLS.
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. Aaron Davidson has with his links, he has links to NASL. He's effectively running the board of NASL. He's effectively the owner of and the chief executive of the Carolina Railhawks. and he is now deeply implicated as a member of the traffic executive leadership. I think it's going to be tough for him. I think that the league has already begun the process of distancing themselves. And, the issue for NASL, really, I think they have sort of more fundamental things they have to deal with. NASL has to continue its growth. They have to bring on more teams. They have to bring on more owners. They have to find news and make news that replaces this in people's minds. And they have to do the hard slog of the grassroots efforts to get their fan base developed. They have to build community partnerships. They have to grow their clubs and grow their fan base. They have to become more relevant and more financially stable and build everything that you have to do to create a league. So it's certainly going to rock their boat a little bit. But I think that what makes NASL live or die in the years ahead are going to be the grassroots issues that allow them to move forward.
Lastly, as we let you go, Charles, do you feel that possibly the tables could turn and now maybe there's going to be a witch hunt on U.S. soccer, on some things maybe that have gone down here, that have kept behind the scenes quietly, that maybe, who knows, maybe some people from Russia, maybe from Qatar, maybe some journalists that like to do this type of thing are going to start saying to themselves, well, let's go start digging down in the U.S. and see what we can find there to put the spotlight on them. Do you feel it could turn the tables the other way now?
It's certainly possible. I think we know that there's going to be some repercussions, but effectively, given the problems and all the suspicions about the bidding process for the World Cup, the biggest prize and the biggest gem for the U.S. soccer community is another World Cup coming back here. The U.S. very narrowly missed out on the 22 World Cup hosting rights. Expect to be in the mix for 2026. Perhaps the odds of that happening have gone down, but Sunil Gulati had already said that the U.S. would not be bidding for another World Cup unless there's significant reforms to the process. So in a sense, he's written off that opportunity until there's at least some level of reform in FIFA. So I think we will, and there are many connections. The soccer community here, much like Canada, is a small one, and we see there's many people who are uncomfortable now with having been linked to Chuck Blazer in the past. They've taken photos with Chuck Blazer. They've sung his praises in the media. So there's going to be some uncomfortable moments like that ahead. I don't know whether there's any real skeletons that can bring anyone down, but certainly in the politics of FIFA, the U.S. is going to probably suffer somewhat here. But I don't think that Gulati felt that he had a great deal to lose at this point.
Charles, thanks so much for taking time out of your busy day. It is an explosive story, a historic day in the game we love so much. I'm sure there's going to be many, many more layers to peel back before it's all said and done. Charles, thanks again and have a great weekend, my friend.
Likewise, and let's all keep an eye on this and make sure that we keep this issue relevant going forward.
Absolutely. Charles Boehm of MLSsoccer.com. Really appreciate it. Once again, have a great weekend, my friend.
You too, Anthony. Bye now.
That is Charles Boehm of MLSsoccer.com. You could follow him on Twitter as well. He does a great job.